So the role of a director is to assist the board in performing its functions, and in doing so to ask questions constructively and courageously. And what I want to focus on in this episode is the constructively piece, because it's absolutely critical as a director that you ask questions in a way that create a positive dynamic with your peer directors, but also a positive dynamic with management, because that relation needs to be one that is open and trusting. And in hundreds of boards that I've worked with and boards I've sat on, I often see directors fall into a trap of how to ask questions so that they create that constructive dynamic. And I've got 3 tips and some examples that I might share as to how I think directors might best ask questions in a more constructive and positive way. So the first one is be strategic, not operational. The role of the board is to operate at a strategic level, and that means focusing on the strategic plan, strategic risks, strategic opportunities. From my experience, if there's one thing management doesn't like, it's when the board gets too operational or where they feel micromanaged. So instead of asking, for example, who's going to be on project and delivery teams and the plans around getting the right people, framing the question more along the lines of, what's our strategic people plan and workforce plan, and what does that tell us about the leadership capabilities and experience sets we need to successfully deliver on this project? The second tip is to ask questions in an open-ended and insightful way. And of course, the role of the board and the role of a director individually is to bring their skills and experience to bear, but it's also to bring the skill and experience of the management team to bear. And what we don't want management to do is come in the boardroom feeling like they're in a game of catch-out. And unfortunately, in some boardrooms, I see that behaviour happen, where management comes in ready for someone to tell them that they've missed a certain fact or figure, or for a director to show that they're the smartest person in the room. So how do we flip that around in a way to ask questions? Well, instead of asking what went wrong with last quarter's financial results, the question might be more around, what did we learn from last quarter's financial results? What are your insights, and how are you going to apply them for the next quarter and indeed maybe the next financial year? And the third one, which is really critical, is frame questions in a positive way. Everyone likes to be acknowledged for effort that they've put in, and sometimes directors can fall in the trap of just focusing on where things have gone bad and not acknowledge that effort. So for example, instead of asking, why has this project gone off track? The question might be more around, I acknowledge that a lot of work's gone into this project. I can see that the team's been working hard. What support and resources do you need to be able to get this project back on track? So they're my 3 key tips for how, as a director, you might be able to fulfill that important way of being able to ask questions in a constructive sense, and that is be strategic, not operational. Ask open-ended, insightful questions and frame positively.